Our final videos here in Chapter 7 are on using the import column and the export column transformations. Now these are actually very complex, maybe is the right word, complicated, poorly documented, difficult tasks. Another way would maybe be to describe them as tasks that require a lot of setup to be able to use them. So we're going to have actually quite a bit of setup before we're going to be able to get to the point we can use the import column and the export. So here, just as a quick idea, here's what they do. Import column, let me just write it out right here. How about that? So we'll say the import column transform takes files and loads them into a database column. Now this is very different from something like the bulk insert task. The bulk insert task works with files and loads that into a SQL server as well, right? The difference is the bulk insert task uses a text file that contains rows. Those rows in turn get mapped to certain columns in a table, and every row that's in the text file, the source file, gets loaded up into the destination. This is actually pretty different. We're going to take, in this particular example, an MP3 file, and we're going to actually store that MP3 file in a column. So we're storing a file in a column, in a row. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, just stick with me and we'll see examples of exactly what I mean. But effectively, we are going to be serving MP3 files through a streaming website. We're going to be doing that through a database engine. We're not going to be using files stored in a file system. Okay. Now the export column does the reverse. So the export column transform takes var binary, well that's technically incorrect, takes files that are stored in binary format in a database column and exports them to physical files. So really we are going to put files into the database and then we're going to extract those files back out of the database. Well, let's get to it. So what I have that we're going to work with, we have a folder here called MP3s, and we really just have 3 MP3s here, and I don't think we need you. So these MP3s are going to be converted and loaded into the database. So we're going to have to convert them to binary format so that we can in turn store them inside of a SQL-based database. Okay, this is what our import column transform is going to be used for. So let's create us a Visual Studio project. And this is actually going to take a fair bit of upfront work. It's just not drag and drop like some of the other tasks will be. This is still going to be a data flow, so we'll just call this the import files. But in this case, what is your data flow source here? Like, what is it that you want to load up and put into that table? It's the contents of those files, right? Well, that doesn't map up with any of our data flow sources that we have. So what we're really going to have to do here is we're going to have to use the script transform. So we're going to use the script component as a source. Okay, and just stick with me. I'm going to leave this for now, but that's going to be our source. We don't see, up here, you don't see a file-based source up here, like a folder, the name of the files in a folder. You don't see that up there. So we're going to actually have to use the script component as a source. Now, before we really dig down and go into the details here, we need a database to put this in. So let's use SQL Server 2008, and we'll create a new database. I just put this website up yesterday, and so we will use this. I play guitar, and so I put this up there just for some of my guitar stuff. And we're going to create a table. We'll call the table track, and put in like a track ID so that we can uniquely identify an individual track, and we'll give it a title. and like the MP3. And the data type that we're going to use is the var binary. So this is not necessarily how it would really be done, but it's close enough. We are using the var binary, and this is what's going to actually store the contents of the file. So what we have to do, we have to go back to this directory, and we have to convert this MP3 file to a binary format so that it actually will be stored in that row and in this particular column. So let's do that. So what we have to do, you can see the track ID is going to be populated by the identity column. We have to populate the title and the MP3. Now let's go back to our folder here. I'm going to be able to pick up the title from the actual file name. You see Sweet Blue, Spoons, Samson. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, this is the title of the file, or of the track in our database, and then we just need to load up this particular MP3 file and convert it to binary. Okay, so it's going to get pretty complex fairly quickly here. So let's come back over here. The flow of this is such like this. You're going to take a script component, and then out of your script component, you're going to then import a column. And then from the import column, this, let's just say over here, converts the file to binary for you. Okay, so set our font. So that is what the import column is going to do for you. And then once you have converted it into binary format, we're going to want to load it up into, where's my SQL Server destination? So load into SQL Server. Okay. So that's really the basic flow here. I'm trying to think of how best to explain this. What we're going to have to do here, the script component as a source, we're going to actually have to manually add the row values. How, in the script component, can we loop through, this is actually a good question I want you to stop and think about. How can, in the script component, we loop through every file in this folder? Your first thought might be to use the for each loop container. Now that's a really good thought, but it's not really what we need to bring into this particular one. What you can do, and this is a key point of this video, is you can come down here to your connection manager and you can make a new file connection to an existing folder. So just go choose it. And now inside of our script component, when we come over here, notice that there's the connection managers tab. We can now say, okay, so I want that connection manager to be known as my MP3 folder. And we will be able to, in our script, access that particular connection manager. And we'll be able to put a for each loop around it. Now, this is getting complex. It's kind of hard. I'm going to use, I'll use Visual Basic for this one. Before I get into the actual script writing, what we've got to do next is we've got to define what the output columns of the script is. So this is a source, right? So at the end of running the script component as a source, what are the columns that you want exposed to the rest of the data flow task? Critical piece here. You need to define the path to the file that you want the import column transform to convert into binary. So what I mean is you're going to have to say C:\\, MP3s was the folder, and then you had Samson.mp3. You need to have a column that has this value in it. because the import column transform is going to accept a path to a file. It will then take that file, convert it into binary, and then later we'll load that binary value into the SQL Server. So we're going to go and make our output columns here. And I'm going to have two columns. I'm going to have the track title, and we're going to have the file name, or we'll call it path to file. Path to file. Now the track title is going to be just a string, 256 characters. And the path to the file is also going to be a string. We'll make that 256 characters as well, maybe a wide string even. Okay, but just notice the track title and the path to the file. What you now have to do is you have to go to the script, and you have to, in the script, you have to now manually populate those values.